wish to make a declaration of interest at this stage? Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I make a declaration as a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council, because it's likely that Essex County Council mentioned in reports later on in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will similarly make that same declaration as a member of Essex County Council. Are there any other declarations of interest at this stage? No? If not, and you think it's relevant when we get to the particular item, then please do make your voice heard at that stage. Right, move on to item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. This was a meeting held on the 12th of July. The minutes have been circulated. Are members happy that they are a true and correct record? Agreed? Yes, I will sign it. Right, move on to item 4, public question time. I don't believe there are any public questions this evening.
No, Chairman, there's no registered speakers for this evening. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. We'll move then on to item 5, 5A, the first quarter performance report, which members, the covering report starts at page 6, and at page 9 you have the full report. I'm not going to go into all the detail, but there are some bits that I would just like to highlight, because I think it's important that we recognise that during this very, very difficult period, our staff have performed exceedingly well in continuing to provide services to members of the public. And as at the end of June, our first quarter of 2021, 13 projects have been completed, 39 are on track and progressing well, and 1 project has amber status due to delays incurred in building works as a result of one of the subcontractors going into administration. By and large, the performance indicators are being well met. I think some of the key achievements I'd just like to draw to the attention of Cabinet. We have delivered in the first quarter a total of 91 affordable homes. We've set a target, if I remember right, of 150 for the year, so that's a really good start on that. We've completed the improvement works to 4 play areas across the district: the Albert Moss recreational grounds in Rivenhall, the Braintree and Bocking Public Gardens in Braintree, Notley Community Hall play area, and Bramble Road in Witham. And also the artificial football pitch at the Halstead Leisure Centre was completed ahead of schedule, and following discussions with stakeholders has been named the Callum Lees Memorial Pitch in tribute to the former Ramsey Academy PE teacher, head of school and much admired member of the Halstead community. A mental health navigator has been recruited in the first quarter to help individuals with more complex needs to move away from rough sleeping, and the housing team have also prevented 64 cases of homelessness in the first quarter, which I think is absolutely splendid the way they've been working there. The Councillor Community Grant Scheme continues and has awarded 16 grants so far, for a value of just under 16,000, and 13 members contributed to a 6,000 grant to the Braintree Museum Trust to deliver the summer 2021 exhibition Space, Fact and Fiction, which was a really first-class exhibition. Okay, in raising the profile of Braintree District as a place to do business, a shop local campaign called Click It Local was launched in April, allowing shops to showcase their products in one place and for customers to order from them online and receive delivery in one package. And also in the first quarter, Halstead High Street was celebrated in the Daily Telegraph as a great place to visit because of its independent businesses, and that raised a lot of interest. The Council successfully retained the Customer Service Excellent accreditation for the 6th year in a row, with the external assessor applauding the Council for its approach to the pandemic in the continuation of services to meet the needs of its customers. And I think to have that external independent judgment of what we as members always felt was happening is indeed very comforting. And also in the first quarter, the Council processed 1,205 business grants, totalling just over 7.5 million, bringing the total number of grants processed by our Finance Department to over 10,500, issuing more than £54 million in grants since the start of the pandemic. Again, something I think that we can all be proud of, but more importantly, the businesses of Braintree will very much have welcomed. There's one thing which is not in the report, which I just want to draw the attention of members of Cabinet to, and that is the issue regarding freedom of information requests. We normally have a very good record in dealing with freedom of information requests, which have to be responded to within the 20-day working day timescale. However, recently we have received a higher than usual number of requests in relation to our planning service, which are more complex and are required to be dealt with under the Environmental Information Regulations, which I have to admit was a new one for me, but I am told are quite complex. And to ensure a good quality of response was provided, some of our responses were delayed and went over time scale, meaning that our performance dropped to 86.67% of requests dealt with within the 20 days. In other words, 52 out of the 60 were responded on time, 8 were a little late. But in each of those cases, the customers were kept informed of delays, and performance is expected to improve over the coming months. But it is meaning that staff who deal with our freedom of information requests are also having to understand exactly what the environmental information regulations mean. And I know Tracy has already undertaken training on that, and I think your team is also about to do that as well. So overall, I'm very pleased with the performance in the first quarter. Those where we are, the 5, I think, where we're a little behind, I think there are all genuine reasons why that has been the case, and I know that Cabinet members will be making sure that where it is possible to make improvements, we will do. Are there any comments or questions anyone has? Right, I've got Councillor Abbott and then Councillor Tattersley. Yeah. Sorry, not Councillor Abbott, Councillor Mann, I beg your pardon.
An easy mistake to make, Chairman. Easy mistake to make. I'm on page 23, performance indicators. In fact, this is a Councillor Abbott type question. We've got their first quarter number of homes granted planning permission, 916, which is a considerable number for a first quarter. Are those permissions outline or full or a mixture of both? And as they're post 31st of March, do they consolidate 5-year housing land supply position?
What a very good question, Councillor Mann. And I'm sure it's one that Councillor Mrs Spray has been wanting to receive all day. Councillor Mrs Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, Councillor Mann, I will have to get a written response for you on how many of those are outline and how many are full, because I don't actually have that information to hand. And as to whether they contribute towards our 5-year supply, I will check. I think the answer is probably going to be no, because our land supply was calculated taking us up to the end of the council year. So I think these will be in addition to, but I will check and I will get a response for you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Tattersley.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I wonder if the summary that you announced at the start of this one could be included in the minutes this time round, because I think it would be useful to share with all members across the council, and it certainly will be helpful for those of us that have got parish councils who we often like to, we often hear about areas where the council fails. It would be nice to give an alternative view to that one, and I thought you did a really clear job on that.
I'm very happy for that to be done, but I don't want to take away the glory. It's Tracy Heford who gave me that brief. I would hate for anyone to think that I put that together myself. And I'm extremely grateful for Tracy for doing it, because it seemed to have hit the right note on the key things. So, yes, I think we'll certainly can, because as you say, there are a number of issues there which I think will be very useful for members of all parties who attend parish councils, etc. So we will do that. Okay. Any other comments or questions at all? If not, are you happy to accept the recommendation, which is to note the performance for the first quarter? Agreed? Thank you very much. Right, we'll move then on to item 6, Finance and Corporate Transformation. Item 6A, the Member Development Annual Report, which commences on page 39 of your agenda, and Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm honoured to be chair of the Member Development Working Group, and I get to work with some really good officers and councillors, namely Megan and Helen from the officer team, and Councillors Pell, Councillors Mann, Dervish, Sandham, Shreer and Wilson. The programme that's been delivered over the past few years has been awarded a charter mark again for the next 3 years, and we've received some really good feedback and given some positive areas to work on, so we can deliver some outstanding training in the future. The attendance is really high, 90% consistently, and it's a result of a really engaging programme, relevant topics, and it's delivered in a way that's understandable and usable for as our roles as councillors. The knowledge that it imparts allows us to be effective, and that equals confidence to engage our constituents, and therefore, when that happens, we rely less on officer time. So although it's a budget line as part of the training for this council, I'm more than certain that the time that officers don't have to spend with councillors in answering some questions and allowing us to approach our constituents direct more than pays for the cost of that budget line. And also this year we were able to outsource some of the results of that too. So we actually made a small income generation, which is great to see. Again, I'd like to commend this report for noting to the Cabinet Member for Finance and indeed this Cabinet this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Any comments or questions? Councillor McKee.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Ritchie for an excellent report and recognise the work of his working group in presenting it. And I'm delighted to accept the recommendations, some of which are already being implemented if you read the report. And it's pleasing to see the level of attendance at members' evenings in the last year or so. If you look, it's much higher than it has been in the past, whether that's to do with Zoom and the like, whether food for thought. And also outside training available for members can enhance their skills while their term of office, therefore they become better, more powerful councillors through both internal and external training, and I'm happy to accept the report, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Mrs. Sprague, could I just ask you to put your microphone? That's lovely, just in case we get some feedback. Okay, thank you. If not, I ask you to note the Member Development Annual Report. Noted? Yep, agreed. Thank you. That moves on to item 6B, the medium-term financial strategy 21-22 to 24-25. This starts on page 48 of your agenda, members, and will be introduced by Councillor McKee.
Thank you, Chair. This item is to agree the budget process for 22-23 and provide an initial update on the medium-term financial strategy for 21-22 to 24-25 that was previously agreed by the Council on the 22nd of February 2021. The level of council tax for 21-22 was frozen at 184.68, recognising that many of the district's residents could be facing difficulties as a result of the impact of the pandemic. The budget provided for a provision of £1 million to be set aside to address financial issues that services might face during 21-22, given the high degree of uncertainty. The approved budget included using £320,165 from the general fund unallocated balances to close the budget gap at that time. This being whilst plans were put in place to address the projected medium-term financial shortfall over the 4 years of £1.657 million. And I'll come on to that a little later when I talk about it. This is the first detailed review of the Council's finances for this year, and it's been undertaken based on the income and expenditure for the first quarter. The details of the current first quarter performance report is in the item earlier, and I won't revert to it. The report on pages 48 to 50 or 54 provides an update on the current year's budget and the estimated impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, an update on government funding for local government, an option if the government offers an opportunity to participate in a bid by Essex authorities to operate an Essex business rates pooling arrangement for 22-23, and issues which may impact the period of the Council's proposed MTFS, including several major areas of uncertainty, including fair funding review, the Environment Bill and Planning White Paper. The approach on developing the budget for 22-23 and rolling the MTFS forward to cover 23-24 and 25-26 is detailed in section 7 of the report. A key factor in developing the budget, as detailed in 7.4, is the output from the investment and development programme for work streams, which is in fact set to try and close that 1.6 million gap, of which are detailed in sections 7.9 to 7.13. This is the potential saving opportunity. One of these is the potential saving opportunity to refinance the LOGO loans for £6 million, on which a window opportunity has been created by the lender, who is open to the refinancing opportunity. Due to the timing of this opportunity, the recommendation tonight includes a delegated decision to allow the negotiation to be completed in a timely manner. I'll just run some highlights of the budget. It predicts a positive variance of 252,000, including a projection of the impact of COVID. The forecast position regarding variance against base budget not due direct to the pandemic is a positive variance of £530,000. The projected change in general fund unallocated balances is a reduction of 384 and an estimated balance at year end of 5.615 million. The predicted outturn includes assumptions for the year that are difficult to predict. The main area of uncertainty is the rate at which income streams will recover since the lifting of COVID-19, and it's a guesswork at the moment in the budget. The following strategic investment projects are completing in the current financial year and are keeping to our programme of developing for the environment, for the residents, Victoria Square development, Horizon 120, infrastructure works and the iConstruct Innovation Centre, for which the revenue implications will need to be reviewed in light of any project changes that were approved, since they were approved. The budget process timetable is in the report, detail on page 53, and tonight's Cabinet meeting is the first important step and culminates on the 21st of February 2022 at full council to approve the 2022-23 budget and approve the council tax levels. Do you want to go on to make the recommendations, or do you want to take some questions first?
I think we'll take questions first.
Okay.
Sorry, I think we'll take
Thanks,
questions first. Any questions or comments anyone has? We've been through this in quite detail, various forums. No? Then I think we'll move to the recommendations.
Okay, Chairman. Recommendations 2.1. Members are asked to A. Note 2022-23 budget process timetable as detailed in the report. B.
Hang on. Are we happy with that? Great. Thank you.
B. Agree that authority is delegated to the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Transformation and the Corporate Director of Finance to give agreement to the Council's participation in an Essex business rate pooling arrangement for 22-23 should the opportunity arise and is deemed to be beneficial to the Council.
Agreed? Yes, thank you.
And lastly, agree that authority is delegated to the Corporate Director of Finance in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Transformation to agree terms for refinancing borrowing, including the finance of premiums. The delegation is subject to the financial modelling continuing to demonstrate a revenue saving after applying an appropriate level of sensitivity analysis. I so move.
Is that final recommendation agreed? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McKee. We move on to item 7 under the Housing Assets and Skills, and item 7A to agree a ground lease extension for 1 Stepfield Witham. Now, members, there is a confidential appendix for this report, which is exempt from publication in the public agenda in accordance with paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. If any member of Cabinet, or indeed any other members who have a right to speak here wish to refer to the information set out in that, it will be necessary for this Cabinet to move into private session. My understanding is that there are no points that anyone wishes to raise at all relating to that. So can I please have your agreement that we will keep the confidential appendix as set out on pages 63 to 64 of the agenda, confidential, in accordance with the legislation that I detailed just now. Are you in agreement with that? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, in which case I'll now ask Councillor Bowers to introduce the paper.
Thank you, Chairman. I believe this is quite straightforward and is detailed and explained well in the public agenda and the confidential appendix. Just to summarise, the decision being sought tonight is in relation to the consideration of Diatex International Limited's request to extend the 45-year unexpired terms of their ground lease up to the 125 years in respect of the industrial premises at 1 Stepfield, Witham, and to approve the agreed heads of terms for lease surrender and re-grant as reported in the confidential appendix. As stated in the report, as option 2, if we decline this request, it would be inconsistent with our asset management plan, where we look to explore opportunities such as this and aligns with the Council's employment and business promotion policies. I propose that we accept option 1 in the report before us tonight and the recommendation as set out in 2.1 on page 55 of the agenda, and I therefore so move. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Any comments or questions from anyone? Councillor Cunningham.
Yes, to say, Mr. Chairman, I think it's positive that despite difficult times, a company is committing its future to Witham, which is positive news, and also that it's fully in line with our current asset management strategy. So yes, very happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? No. In that case, the recommendation as moved by Councillor Bowers is in paragraph 2.1 on page 55. Are you happy to agree that recommendation? Agreed. Thank you. Now move on to item 8, item 8A, under the heading of Health and Wellbeing. The Braintree District Council leisure provision from August 2022. Again, members, there are on this occasion 3 confidential appendices for this report, which are exempt from publication in the public agenda in accordance with paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. Again, if any member wishes to refer to any aspect contained solely in those appendices, then it will be necessary for us to move into private session. Again, I've not received any notification from anyone that they wish to do so, in which case I will ask for your agreement, members, to keep the confidential appendices as set out on pages 65 to 95 of the agenda confidential in accordance with paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Are you agreed? Agreed. Okay. In which case I will now ask Councillor Tattersley to present the report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I wished I could say this was an easy report to follow. In fact, it's very complicated. The Council's contract with Fusion is due to come to an end on the 31st of August next year, which means we now need to be looking at the options available to us if we want to maintain that particular contract. Clearly, before anything is agreed, the Council would want to look at the options, including the financial risk, and particularly the way Fusion have delivered the contract so far. Our officers, with the support of a specialist leisure consultancy, have assessed all the options, and I'm very grateful for the comprehensive and professional manner in which this has been done. I think the reports you'll see are commendable and extremely comprehensible. All these issues have been well documented in the 30-odd pages in the confidential section and the 6th page in the public agenda. I have to assume that members have read the report, but I do need to summarise some of the main points for openness and for those non-cabinet members and members of the public on the webcast and YouTube channel. There are principally 3 options open to us. We can either renew the contract, which is straightforward enough, re-tender the contract and see who else might be interested in providing that service, or extend the existing contract as allowed in the original contract, and I'll cover that a little bit later on. The recommendation, however, that I'm making is on page 59, which is to extend the contract with Fusion for a further 5-year period, but I want to share with you some of the thinking that went into that recommendation. I fully accept that in the first COVID lockdown, things could have been dealt with better. We had poor communication with fee-paying leisure centre members, a delay from Fusion providing financial information to the council, and confusion from the government about the financial support and the staff about financial report, and staff relations could have been better. But of course, at that time, COVID was a complete unknown, and I'm not sure if anyone at that time had all the answers or could understand the answers. When Fusion were first appointed, we were paying the previous contractor a management fee. The Fusion contracted provided for them to pay the council for the use of council facilities, and you'll see from the report that this is worth over £1 million over 5 years to the council. And in addition to the financial side of it, and I never like to just purely concentrate on the finance side, but over the life of the contract, Fusion have contributed to the council's overall strategic objectives far beyond what was specified in the contract. They've provided gym equipment, which is suitable for those living with disabilities. They've made the centre available for activities suitable for those with long-term illnesses, those with long-term mental illnesses and physical issues. And just mention on that one that some of the gym equipment that they've provided is suitable for people with physical disabilities. And I think if this was a private operated contract, it wouldn't be worth their while to do that sort of issues. And this is probably one of the benefits to having a local authority provided service where things can be provided for the benefit of the community and not necessarily just for financial gain. Having said all that, there are still some uncertainties over the long-term future of local authority provided leisure facilities, including swimming pools. So rather than going for the full 5-year unconditional contract extension, we will be recommending a break clause at 3 years. The confidential Appendix A gives the implication to both Fusion and the Council if it becomes necessary to implement this. And it's purely in there because we just don't know whether we're going to get another lockdown. We don't know what the long-term implications. We don't know whether people are going to be willing to go back into leisure centres and so on. However, as part of the extension, Fusion would invest £1.1 million in gym and studio refurbishments, sports equipment and lifestyle works, entirely funded by them. And, Mr Chairman, if we were to make a decision now, this refurbishment could be brought forward before the end of the existing contract to ensure that returning and new customers, so that we could make sure that this refurbishment benefited existing customers and attract new customers into the leisure centre. The manner in which the leisure industry bounced back after the 2 lockdowns lead to me believe that even if we have another lockdown, arrangements could be put in place in the spirit of joint interest between ourselves and Fusion, which would not necessarily impact on the commercial benefits of the 5-year extension with the 3-year break clause, as I mentioned. And the recommendation is on page 59 in section 2 of the report. I should just mention as well, just reviewing this particular item, I reported on the 3rd of February to the Performance Management Board the financial position with Fusion at that time and circulated a response to all members on the 4th of February. And subsequent to that email, I reported that the National Leisure Recovery Fund refunded the £330,000 that we put aside in case of difficulties with Fusion, and we've now recovered that amount back. So I so move the report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Tattersley. Any comments or questions at all? Councillor Cunningham?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Tattersley for what is a very comprehensive report. I think it's only appropriate that it's a very comprehensive report because leisure services are a major component of our service delivery, and when you reach a critical point, I think all options need to be explored, and it's very positive that all options have been explored through this piece of work. I think I'm right in saying, when providing leisure services, getting a positive outcome in both customer satisfaction and delivering it in a financially responsible way to the taxpayers is a difficult balance, or it's difficult to satisfy both those criteria. And it does seem that our relationship with Fusion has maybe at times bucked a little bit of trend in terms of positive outcomes in both of those aspects. Councillor Tattersley quite rightly pointed to some issues, I would say issues rather than deep concerns maybe, during that unprecedentedly difficult, uncertain period at the start of the pandemic back in 2020. And it does seem that the actual working relationship with Fusion is probably stronger as a result of that honest check and challenge, and they've been able to respond to events remarkably well. I think it's also very responsible that there is that break clause after 3 years. We remain in uncertain times. As Councillor Tattersley said, provision of leisure services will remain uncharted territory and uncertain for that period of time. So I think we have a very satisfactory and positive outcome in terms of our approach to leisure services, and I totally support the recommendation that Councillor Tattersley has outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Any other comments at all? Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chairman. I think within the context we find ourselves, this is the realistic option. I was wondering, as we approach the end of the 3 years or the 5 years, how are we going to move on from there? Will it be a simple retender exercise, or possibly a wider review, re-examination of how we can deliver the service locally?
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Tattersley, do you want to pick up on the two comments from Councillor Cunningham and Councillor Mann?
Yes. One of the things that we used to do before the lockdown was to invite Fusion to the Cabinet meeting, and they gave us quite a detailed rundown about participation, minority groups and so on, and gave a detailed explanation for that one. And I think gave us confidence about what they were doing and how that was progressing. So far as looking at the way that the contracts run, you can't vary very much obviously from the contract conditions, but Fusion have always been willing to extend that a little bit, and I think that that's down to the relationship we've got with our contract managers and the people when they meet Fusion. So I can understand where you're coming from with the question. My answer would be that this thing is reviewed all the time, and I think all members of the Cabinet and people attending Cabinet would get an opportunity to question them in some detail, and we're looking forward to resurrecting those meetings.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Councillor Bowers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I fully support the recommendation before us tonight. I think, as has been alluded to by Councillor Tattersley and Councillor Cunningham, I think leisure services is one of the many things that was hit quite hard, has been hit very hard over the last sort of 16 months. And I just applaud the work that has gone in to get us to the recommendation we've got before us tonight. It's very complex, leisure services always are, but I feel that we've got where we need to be for going forward. And despite the issues, I think, as Councillor Cunningham alluded to, I feel the relationship is probably even stronger now with Fusion, and that can only be good for the council and our residents. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, completely agree with all the comments that have been made this evening. I think the innovation that includes the break clause is of particular relevance for both parties in this context. From a community's perspective, having some stability across these facilities across Braintree, Houstead and Witham, I think is key for our communities. It was our communities that suffered when they were closed, and I think this contract gives some future proofing to enable those in their communities to have access to council assisted leisure facilities. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. I'm sure you didn't intend to upset Councillor Mrs Powell. You also mean Witham, Braintree and Halstead. You left Halstead out, yes? Because Councillor Mrs Powell and I have a close affinity with the pool in Halstead, having bathed there together when it opened. Many years ago when we were both younger and, yeah. Okay. Right. Any other comments or questions at all? No? Then the recommendation, colleagues, is on page 59, paragraph 2.1. One, that we approve the extension of the contract with Fusion Lifestyle for a further 5-year period at a total Braintree District Council income value of £1,077,650. And B, that we approve the inclusion of a break clause at year 3 of the contract. I assume that's at the end of year 3 of the contract. Yeah, fine. Are you happy to accept that recommendation? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Item 9, urgent business. I don't have notification of any other urgent business. We don't need to exclude the public and press because we have dealt with the confidential appendices that were items 11 and 12 on the agenda. And therefore, without more ado, I will declare the meeting closed at 7:52. Thank you very much indeed for attending.